Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
We're discussing empowering people's career growth. I want to start by asking each of you why it's important to create a culture of learning and development within an organization in the first place. Whitney?
Well, the fundamental unit of growth in every organization is the individual. And so if you are able to help the individual grow, help the individual learn, then because of the contagion effect, what's going to happen is they're going to automatically create conditions where people around them can grow. And if you're a leader, they then have the moral authority to invite people to grow. And as you as an individual grow, your people grow, then an outcome of that, the dependent variable, if you will, your organization will grow. But it starts with the individual having a desire, following that human imperative to learn and grow.
Torrance?
I love that answer. And it makes me think about learning as a superpower. Because when you really think fundamentally about solving problems, overcoming challenges, if a person has the ability to learn, that's the only thing standing in between them and that opportunity. I grew up as with 3 brothers, 2 sisters, so 6 kids. And you can imagine there was some level of altercation that took place between us as we grew up. And one of the things we would say to each other when we were about to really get into a fight was, the only thing standing between us is air and opportunity. And I'll kind of shift that a little bit. It's the only thing standing between solving problems is learning and opportunity. So with that power, we can do anything.
Clémence, why is L&D important in an organization?
I'm just going to be changing and question all the time. So I think when you start to have inside your organization a real culture of learning, where people have desire to learn, where they understand the necessity for them to learn and adjust to the change that are operating, you just have the muscle for having an organization that is flexible, that is highly adaptable, and that has a competitive edge compared to the other organization around, because in a capacity to absorb and be resilient towards the change that are interacting with the organization outside.
When you joined Richemont 2 years ago, you walked into an organization that you describe as diverse and siloed. In what ways?
So my organization today is very diverse, as you rightly mentioned. It does operate in more than 130 countries, and we have more than 35,000 employees that skew everywhere, beginning with manufacture. So we have a lot of watchmakers, especially in Switzerland. We have retail associates with boutiques operating all around the world. But with the chance comes the challenge, which is how do you grow and draw and develop bridges in between people inside an organization. And I think that's a challenge like a lot of fast-growing organizations really have to face, which is how do you continue to connect people, because the way you've been operating in the past and the way you need to operate at scale and speed are very different. And at the core of it, I really believe there's the question of empathy.
Wow. Torrance, prior to leading talent management at Shaw Industries, you spent more than 2 decades on the manufacturing side of the business. What did that experience teach you about managing talent?
In manufacturing, it's very complex. It's big. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people, products, processes. So onboarding, and it's something that I integrate into how I operate till this day, was extremely important for learning your way around so that you can make the impact that you need to make to support the organization.
Whitney, help us connect the dots from a culture of learning and development, the systems and processes around it, to drivers of business performance and business growth. How does one affect the other?
If you want to grow your people, what does that look like? How do you think about that? And so in our work, we think about what we call the S curve of learning. And what that does is a reimagination of Everett Rogers, the sociologist, his S curve that you use in product development. And it helps you understand how groups change over time. But we started to think, well, this could help us understand how individuals change, how we learn and how we grow. And so what we think about is that every single person that walks in the door of your organization, every single person in manufacturing, every single person in China, they are on a growth curve. They are on an S curve of learning. And if you understand that, then you recognize, well, when they first start at the company and you're onboarding them, they're on the launch point of that S curve. And growth is happening, but it's going to feel slow. So they're going to have lots of days where they feel overwhelmed and discouraged, even though they're thrilled that they're here. But then they'll put in the effort and they'll move into the sweet spot. They'll tip into that sweet spot, that sleek, steep back of the curve where growth not only is fast, it feels fast. And then you get to mastery where growth is in fact slow. And the reason that you can tie that to profits is you can say to yourself, all right, if I have people who are at the top of that curve, if I don't allow them to continue to grow and develop, then I'm going to have this capacity that is going unutilized. And so I need to unleash that innovative capacity. And if I do, if I will allow those people to continue to grow, then you have this virtuous cycle of people are growing and therefore the company is growing.
That's fascinating.
And I think that's really important. And I think it's a major change in the learning kind of ways to operate of organization that de-silo a little bit the perception that learning is concentrated on what we used to call a high potential, and think about learning in a much more ambitious way, which is everyone should be empowered to learn. Everyone should have capacity to be helped in his own development. Doesn't mean they start from the same point, doesn't mean they will be ending at the same point, but that everyone feel entitled to have an opportunity to grow. I think it's critical for bringing energy and bringing the flexibility that your organization needs to go over change, that everyone has a role to play in that change by being offered an opportunity to learn. So every single person.
Do you want to build on that? And then I want to build on that.
I love the adaptation of the S curve of innovation to learning, and something that we're working to do more of is to really think about point in time. Where are we now? And I think about that S curve as, hey, I'm new. I need to be onboarded. I need to be acclimated. I've been here for a while. I need to be stimulated because the world is changing. The expectations are changing. So I have to learn something different, even though I'm a 20 plus year veteran. So we should always feel that pressure to learn and grow no matter where we are in our career.
And you know what's so exciting is that if you have a person who is on the right S curve for them, they're in the right role and they're growing, and you can grow whether you're at the launch point, sweet spot, or mastery, then everybody becomes a high performer. Everybody is best talent. And so it completely flips that and says, no, we don't have high performers or high potentials. Everybody is a high performer if they're in the right role. Because again, we all were wired to grow. And so if we have that opportunity, I think we can unleash that in people.
And it's so empowering for people. Like, it gives energy to feel like I have a role to play. I can continue in my journey with an organization. I'm not going to be stuck into one perception. And I think that's really the power of learning, when you give the keys to people, and that's their opportunity to seize the possibility and do something with it, but that they're not disqualified from it.
Have there been any surprises? You said you put it in everybody's hands, like someone on the manufacturing floor. Have there been surprises like, whoa, I never expected this person in this department that we handed this insight to? Does anything come to mind?
Totally. I have front office workers, receptionists at our headquarters that are really avid learners. And flip side, you have people that you would have felt more interesting, but they don't find the time. So it's really changing the cartography that you have of who are the change agents inside your organization. And I found it extremely fascinating, because opportunities like that, you really see who are your avid learner inside the organization, who are the people who will seize the opportunity. We're not going to reach everyone, but can we reach the people that will drive the change wherever they sit? Because they will socialize ideas. They will be the one to share their excitement. They will cascade it. They will become your promoters. And I think that's extremely important. And going into more skill-based organization, it's revisiting where do you have those opportunities versus what you can see from other source of data.
Clémence, I'm curious, taking a step back at Richemont and Apple, where you spent 5 years prior, customer experience is paramount, right? Does it ever create a tension with the employee experience?
I believe that people experience is really the dynamic that connects together employee experience and customers experience. At Apple, we were, as you were mentioning, focusing a lot on customer experience, but to do so, one of the core muscle of customers experience was employee experience. We always say like the best way to acquire a customer is to offer someone an amazing onboarding experience. And if you make an employee feel great about the work, I think it's 3/4 of the customer experience are done, because it's really the engagement, the passion that the person will bring into the relationship with the customers.
One of the things our CEO says about customer experience and associate experience, he says, I've never seen an unhappy associate create a happy customer. And it really does highlight that symbiotic relationship between the two. And you see employees getting a lot of engagement when they see customers have great experiences. But the world is so flat now, all of our companies are visible to everyone. And so customers are seeing through the power of technology and the internet, they're seeing inside of our companies. And that also drives customer experiences, even when there's not an exchange or a transaction between the two.
I want to spend a few minutes on an important topic. If there's one thing we've learned from this movement toward focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DE&I, it's that the biases and the gaps exist almost everywhere. Do you see these biases and gaps in learning and development?
It is such a tremendous opportunity for organizations to unleash talent. And it is fortunate that a lot of times unconscious biases really hold us back from doing great things for organizations. Because of multiple dimensions of diversity, because of unconscious biases. And if someone who's powerful and capable and they know they have something to give to the world and they can't release it in that organization, they're going to find another place where they can do that.
Yeah, there's data that says that women, and I think this extrapolates to underrepresented groups generally, have to be 2.5 times more competent just to be on equal footing. And so, to your point, if you're feeling like your accomplishments aren't seen and your contributions aren't seen, now that things have flipped and there's a labor shortage, there are more opportunities.
Clémence, Whitney mentioned the great aspiration among employees, and employees are inspired, empowered, and sometimes they leave their existing organization for that reason, but it's in the company's interest to keep them. I'd love to hear at Richemont, as a result of learning and development, has there been an effect on internal mobility?
This year, we completely revamped the way we operated performance inside the organization, and we changed performance to say at the core of performance, there is development. So we don't want to talk any longer of performance and development. Development is performance. So far, the way you operated until now, it's really how do you achieve on your priorities. But the condition of tomorrow performance is going to be your development. So we launched a new framework that we call My Performance Journey, where we have multiple conversations through the year, including conversations that are specific on development. And as you all experiment, I believe it's a big shift in terms of culture to really get managers and employees to feel accountable of development. So we're doing a lot of training for employees to help them to feel empowered, to articulate their thoughts so that they can go into the conversation about their development with more concrete action. Is today in our organization, we have more than 40% of the opportunities that are taken by internal candidates.
Wow.
So it's a big part of the move, and we see people moving from maison to maison. We don't call them brands, we call them maison. People are moving from region to region. People are moving from function to function. We are transitioning to become more like a skill-based organization so that we walk away from job description. We walk away from bias regarding what people can do against the job title they own, to think more about what are the skills they bring into the conversation and what are the territories on which we can get them to apply with skills. So, and I think to your point is really critical for retention. What people want to hear is actually they stay, but they don't stay static. They stay and they continue to become something different in an organization.
Okay, I just have to say mic drop moment, which was development is performance.
Yeah.
That was really fantastic.
That's a light bulb.
Oh
for me
yeah,
too.
that's so good. It changes how you Frame it.
I agree. And especially with what we've experienced the last two and a half
Yeah.
years. So I love the framing of development is performance because it's an expectation. It's a desire that people have. But when you frame it as an expectation for your performance, it moves the whole conversation.
They get to
a
act
different
on their
place.
desires. They get to act on that thing that they want to do, because no one ever said, I don't want to develop my people. No one ever said, I want to be a bad boss, ever.
That's right. We have people saying, I don't have time, I'm too busy, my work-life balance is out of whack. But everybody desires it, and every company and organization wants it.
Torrance, we were talking earlier about learning and development for all employees. That sounds like it might require a lot of data to kind of track employees along their journey, to make sure they're receiving the customized, proper L&D for their level or for their skills. How does your team leverage data to make L&D most effective?
We know that when people invest time and energy into learning and development, they tend to be more engaged. They tend to stay longer. They tend to be promoted more often. And they contribute to the company in a larger way. And what we saw in the data was someone who went through that onboarding program was 2 times more likely to stay with us than someone who did. So taking that time and energy on the front end to introduce people to the organization, to connect them, to make them aware of the resources and the opportunities that are around them has lasting impacts on their retention with the organization. There is, and you might have heard this, is when someone new comes to an organization, usually within the first couple of weeks, they've already determined if they're going to be here long-term or not. So if you don't take care of that precious beginning time period of coming into an org, that talent is already shot.
I love that precious time. For me, I think about that launch point of the curve where you feel so vulnerable because you're trying to make your way and figure out how you're going to be effective in this organization. You're also trying to affect change, and it's a very vulnerable time. And so if you feel the sense of connectedness to the organization, connectedness to the people, then they say, oh, there's a place for me here. That's what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just when you onboard, but you have moments of vulnerability. Every moment where you're taking a step into your career, when you're becoming a manager, when you're becoming someone that is delegated to a new function, you have again those moments of vulnerability where you need more of the organization, you need a little bit more support. So thinking about onboarding, I think there's really a necessity for us, and that's something that we're trying to do at Richemont, to say we revamp our onboarding. We want to invest more because we understand it's a very critical moment, but let's think about all those moments of re-onboarding that you have for your career, which are all the major transition where again, you will have a stronger sense of vulnerability. You need a little bit more guidance.
Yeah, that's truly empowering people's entire careers, not just their start at the company or things like that. Well, thank you all for joining us for this important conversation today.
And thank you, Clémence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Whitney.
Thank you.
It's a
Very fun.
pleasure.